Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Storytime English. I am so glad you are here with me today. Take a deep breath, sit back, relax, and let this story carry you gently through time. Now, imagine for a moment that you are walking through a narrow canyon. The walls of rock rise high above you on both sides. They are so tall that only a thin line of blue sky is visible above your head. The stone around you is red and orange and pink, like the colors of a sunset frozen into rock. The path is cool and quiet. Your footsteps echo softly against the walls. You have been walking for 20 minutes. You do not know what is ahead. And then the canyon opens, and you see something impossible. Carved directly into the face of a massive cliff is a building, not built with bricks, not constructed with wood, carved from the stone itself. It is enormous, beautiful, and completely silent. It has been standing here for more than 2,000 years, and for almost 1,000 of those years, the outside world did not even know it existed. This is Petra, the Rose City, the Lost City, and this is its story. The story of Petra begins not with buildings or stone, but with people. A group of people called the Nabateans. The Nabateans were originally nomads. Nomads are people who do not live in one fixed place. They move from place to place, following water and food. The Nabateans lived in the deserts of the Middle East. Today, we call this region Jordan and parts of Saudi Arabia. They were tough, clever, and they knew the desert better than anyone. The desert is a difficult place to survive. Water is rare, the sun is fierce, temperatures can reach 50 degrees in the summer. Most people avoided the deep desert. They stayed near the rivers, near the coasts, near the places where life was easier. But the Nabateans did not fear the desert. They understood its secrets. They knew where to find hidden springs deep in the rock. They knew how to collect and store rainwater in underground tanks carved into the stone. They knew paths through the mountains that no one else could follow. Secret trails wound through narrow canyons and over high ridges. The desert, which was a death trap for most people, was their home. It was their protection. It was their shield. Because they understood the desert, the Nabateans became expert traders. They guided caravans safely across the sand. They knew where the water was. They knew where the danger was. And over time, they grew wealthier and more powerful. And then, sometime around the 4th century before Christ, the Nabateans did something remarkable. They stopped moving. They chose a place to settle, and the place they chose was extraordinary. Deep inside the mountains of southern Jordan, surrounded by high cliffs and narrow canyons, there was a hidden valley. It could only be reached through a long, narrow passage called the Sick. The Sick was a crack in the rock. It was just wide enough for a few people to walk through. It twisted and turned for more than a kilometer. Anyone who did not know the way would never find the entrance. In this hidden valley, the Nabateans began to build their city. But they did not build it the way most people build cities. They did not carry stones from far away. They did not stack bricks on top of each other. They did something far more extraordinary. They carved their entire city directly into the mountain itself. They took the raw red rock of the cliffs and cut into it. They used simple tools, chisels and hammers made of iron. They carved doorways. They carved rooms. They carved staircases. They carved tombs and temples and halls, all from the living rock. They started at the top and worked their way down. They removed the stone piece by piece, shaping the mountain into something new. Think about that for a moment. They did not bring materials to this place. They used the mountain itself. They did not build on the land. They carved into it. The city and the mountain became one and the same thing. The most famous building in Petra is called Al-Khazneh. In Arabic, this means the treasury. It is a massive structure, carved into a cliff face. It is nearly 40 meters tall. Its front has tall columns, beautiful carvings, and delicate details, all cut directly from the pink stone. When you stand before it, you cannot believe that human hands made this. It looks like something from a dream. And the treasury was only one of many. Across the valley, there were hundreds of carved structures, tombs for the dead, temples for the gods, homes for the living. The entire city was carved from stone, and the stone was beautiful. Because of its color, people later called Petra the Rose City. The name Petra itself comes from the Greek word for rock. But Petra was not just beautiful. It was powerful. And the source of its power was trade. The ancient world had many valuable things that people wanted to buy and sell. Frankincense, myrrh. These are dried tree resins, sticky substances that come from trees that smell sweet when burned. They were used in religious ceremonies across the ancient world. They were precious. Some were worth more than gold. Spices from India, silk from China. All of these goods traveled along long trade routes through the desert. And Petra sat right in the middle of those routes. It was like a crossroads, a meeting point between Arabia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome. Imagine a map of the ancient world. Goods moved from east to west, from south to north, and many of those roads passed through the desert where the Nabateans lived. Every caravan that carried goods through this part of the world had to pass near Petra, and the Nabateans controlled the roads. They knew every path. They controlled every source of water. If you wanted to cross their territory, you needed their help. They charged fees for safe passage. They offered water, food, and safe places to rest. They became the middlemen of the ancient world. They connected buyers and sellers across vast distances, and they became very, very rich. At its peak, Petra was home to about 30,000 people. It was not just a collection of tombs. It was a living, breathing city. It had markets where traders from distant lands sold their goods. It had workshops where craftsmen made pottery, jewelry, and leather. It had temples where people prayed. It had a large theater carved from the rock that could seat more than 4,000 people. It had houses, gardens, and public squares. It was a true city, hidden inside the mountains. People lived, worked, traded, and prayed here for hundreds of years. But here is what may surprise you most. The Nabateans built something even more impressive than their temples. They built a water system. Remember, Petra is in the desert. Rain is rare. But when it does rain, the water rushes through the canyons in powerful flash floods. The Nabateans did not let that water escape. They carved channels into the rock to guide the water. They built dams to control the flow. They created underground pipes made from stone. They stored water in large tanks cut deep into the ground. This system was so well designed that Petra had enough water for 30,000 people. There were gardens. There were even fountains, all in the middle of the desert. It was an engineering miracle. It showed that the Nabateans were not just artists. They were also brilliant engineers. But the world was changing around them. And soon, a power greater than any trade route would come knocking at Petra's door. In the year 106, the Roman Empire took control of Petra. The Nabatean kingdom became a Roman province. This was not a violent conquest. The transition was mostly peaceful. The Romans simply absorbed the region into their enormous empire. Petra continued to function as a city. The Romans added their own buildings. They built a wide, paved road through the center of the city. They added Roman-style baths and new temples. For a time, Petra remained wealthy and busy. But slowly, the world around Petra began to change. New sea routes were discovered. Ships began carrying goods by water instead of by land. It was faster and cheaper to move silk and spices by ship then by camel caravan through the desert. The roads that had made Petra rich were becoming quiet. Fewer caravans came. Less money flowed into the city. And then nature delivered a terrible blow. In the year 363, a massive earthquake shook the entire region. Buildings cracked. Walls fell. The beautiful water system, the channels and pipes and dams that had kept the city alive, was badly damaged. Without water, life in the desert becomes impossible. The Nabateans repaired what they could. They rebuilt walls. They fixed the water channels. But another earthquake struck in 551, causing even more destruction. It was too much. The people of Petra began to leave. Slowly, family by family, the city emptied. The houses fell silent. The markets closed. Sand and dust began to cover the carved floors. Weeds grew in the cracks of the stone. The narrow Sikh, once filled with the sounds of travelers and traders, became quiet. Only the wind moved through the canyon. And then, for nearly 1,000 years, Petra disappeared from the knowledge of the outside world. Can you imagine that? An entire city, one of the great wonders of the ancient world, simply forgotten. The local Bedouin people, the desert tribes of the region, always knew it was there. They lived in and around the ruins. They sheltered in the ancient caves. They watered their goats in the old channels. But they did not tell outsiders about it. They guarded their secret. To the rest of the world, Petra became a legend, a rumor, a dream. Travelers sometimes heard whispers about a magnificent city hidden in the mountains of Arabia. But no one from Europe had seen it. No one could prove it was real. And then, in 1812, a young Swiss man changed everything. His name was Johann Ludwig Burckhardt. He was a young explorer from Switzerland, a scholar who loved languages, history, and adventure. He had spent years living in the Middle East. He had learned Arabic so well that he could pass as a local. He dressed in Arab clothing. He grew a beard. He gave himself an Arabic name. He wanted to understand the region from the inside, not as an outsider looking in. During his travels, he had heard the old stories. The Bedouins spoke of a magnificent hidden city deep in the mountains of Jordan, a city carved from red stone, a city of the ancients. Burckhardt was determined to find it. But he knew that if he simply asked the Bedouin to take him to the ruins, they would refuse. Outsiders were not welcome. The Bedouin protected their secrets carefully. So Burckhardt had a clever idea. He disguised himself as an Arab pilgrim. He told his Bedouin guide he wanted to visit a famous tomb near the ancient city. It was the tomb of Aaron, the brother of Moses. His guide led him through the Sikh. The walls of the canyon rose high above him. The path twisted and turned. And then, just as it does for every visitor, the canyon opened, and there it was. The treasury, enormous, beautiful, carved from pink stone, standing in silence, as if it waited for someone to find it. Burckhardt's heart must have been beating fast. He saw the carved tombs. He saw the temples. He saw the theater. He saw the remains of an entire civilization that had been hidden from the world for nearly 1,000 years. He could not stay long. He had to keep pretending he was a pilgrim. He could not take out his notebook or draw maps without making his guide suspicious. But he saw enough. He remembered everything. And later, he wrote about what he had found. When his writings reached Europe, the world was amazed. Explorers, artists, and scholars came from across the globe to see this impossible place. Painters tried to capture its beauty on canvas. Writers tried to describe it in words. One English poet, John William Burgon, wrote a famous line about Petra. He called it a rose-red city half as old as time. That single line became one of the most quoted descriptions of any place on Earth. They stood where you are standing now, in that imagined canyon. They looked up at a city carved from stone. They could not believe their eyes. Today, Petra is one of the most famous places on Earth. In 1985, it was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This means it is protected as a treasure that belongs to all of humanity. In 2007, it was voted one of the new 7 wonders of the world. Millions of people visit every year from every corner of the globe. They walk through the same sick that the Nabateans walked through 2,000 years ago. They stand before the treasury and feel the same wonder that Burckhardt felt in 1812. And the stone is still there. Still red, still pink, still carved, still standing, patient and beautiful, after all these years. And so, my friend, the story of the lost city comes gently to its end. The Nabateans showed the world something powerful. They took something hard, something that seemed impossible to shape, solid rock, and they turned it into something beautiful. They did not wait for perfect conditions. They lived in a desert. They had simple tools. They faced heat and dust and danger every day. But they carved, patiently, carefully, day after day. And they created something that has lasted more than 2,000 years. And you, my friend, you are doing something similar right now. You may not realize it, but you are. Learning a new language is a little like carving stone. It is hard. It takes time. Some days it feels like you are making no progress at all. Every word you learn, every sentence you understand, every story you follow from beginning to end, that is another mark in the stone. That is another shape beginning to appear. You may not see the full picture yet, but it is forming. Slowly, beautifully. Just like the Nabateans carved one shape at a time, you are shaping something new inside yourself. And one day, you will look back at what you have built. You will be amazed at how much you created from something that once seemed so hard. Keep carving, my friend. Keep listening. Keep learning. And never stop moving forward. This is Storytime English. If the story of Petra touched you today, please leave a comment. Tell me, what amazed you most? Was it the city carved from stone, the water system in the desert, or the moment Burckhardt walked through the sick and saw the treasury? I would love to hear from you. There are many more stories waiting right here, and I will be here when you come back. Until next time, my friend, take care of yourself and never stop learning.